We are live to the world. And the reason why we have decided to go live today is to talk about something that's really important. World Mental Health Day 2020 is tomorrow. To some of you, it's today, October 10. And we have talked about this for a very long time. I'm here with Dr. Torben Berglund, an Associate Director of Health Ministries for the General Conference. Also, Dr. Katja Reynard, also from the General Conference, Associate Director of Health Ministries, and Dr. Julian Melgosa from the Education Department of the General Conference. And they have come together along with other ministries to talk about something incredibly important, which is mental health. Dr. Torben, I'm coming to you first because when COVID hit and the pandemic started, you and I had a series of programs where we talked about mental health, and you had some serious predictions for what would happen, and those things materialized. So I'm glad that we have a project that is going to help in this. We have hundreds of people watching. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we have, with this pandemic, we have been sort of expecting that people would be struggling with mental health issues. That's what we've been talking about now for months. And now we're getting evidence, we're getting research, we're getting data that shows that actually is the case. Like you said, it has materialized. The way it has materialized is quite dramatic, because we're getting reports that shows level of distress, levels of mental illness in the populations around the world that are just surprisingly high. I have to say, even with expectations we had, this is more than I had imagined we would see. In August, the CDC in the US came out with a very good report done in the US context, but we see there are similar reports from other parts of the world where we see, like, for example, anxiety problems are up 3 times compared to last year, depression issues up 4 times compared to last year. In that study, 40% of the population reported mental illness issues or substance use issues on the level where they need help. And what especially worried me was looking at the young people, the age group 18 to 24, where 75% of this population reported symptoms on the level of like mental illness or substance abuse issue, and about 25% reported having seriously considered suicide in the last 30 days. So these are just dramatic numbers that we have been talking about this, like you said, for a while, trying to raise awareness, help people, support people. But then just seeing these numbers coming out, and also this is similar numbers from around the world, we just realized we really need to do things on this. And that's what this initiative is about, to raise awareness and provide support for people who need it.
When the pandemic started, we started offering prayer on our main Facebook page of the church. And it's very interesting what you just said, Dr. Torben, because we are receiving just over 50,000 messages every week asking for prayer. And most of those messages come from young men, 18 to 24, exactly what you just mentioned. And they don't have anywhere to go, I suppose. That's why they are, reaching out to an organization to ask for prayer. There's nothing else that they can do. Dr. Katja, which are the departments that are involved in this initiative? And tell us a bit more about the structure.
Thank you again for the opportunity to be together, Pastor Sam. And what you just mentioned is actually very relevant, because I think, this is an issue, of course, it's affecting everyone. However, we see this age group of 18 to 24 males. So, we are focusing on this age group. But the reality is that in order to make an impact, everybody needs to come together. So we have family ministries, besides health and youth ministries and education. All of these departments together, they actually have a huge impact on these young people, on this age group, both males and females, of course. But of course, we're looking for this most vulnerable group. Not that others are not having issues, but as Dr. Torben mentioned, this is an identifiable, vulnerable, more at risk population. I mean, think about it, 3 out of every 4 young people. That's a lot of people. And so that's why this collaboration between family ministries, health, youth, and education.
2020 has been a devastating year in so many regards. When you think we got to the worst of it, there's more bad news coming. And we don't have the face-to-face experience we used to when we went to church or when we went to school, when we met other people. And this must have had an impact in people's routine, people's psyche, people's vision of themselves, their future, etc. Dr. Julian Melgosa, you are a psychologist, and you have listened to many people talk about their situation in the past. We expect this year for those conversations to be different. But what if you don't have access to the same number of people anymore and your social life is totally different? After all, we are socially distancing all over the world. What impact does that have on our minds?
Well, a great deal of support comes from other people. When we live in a very good family environment and we find support listening to and talking to people in our family, those who do not have a very environmentally favorable family, then may find support elsewhere with friends or in a church or in an organization of some sort. With a confinement, what people are experiencing is that they just all of a sudden they have been cut from this support. It is true that thanks to the various electronic means, people are finding support, but there are some people that don't have access to this, and there are people who don't find the same reward. I live in a neighborhood that is very peaceful. People who have lived here for many years, they say, we have never had delinquency here. We have never had any problem. Well, over the last few months, in this little peaceful neighborhood, there has been an homicide and a suicide, which nobody remembers having before. And there is no doubt that may be related likely to this pandemic.
We have begun to see people comment here. Happy Sabbath to everyone that is watching, our Adventist family worldwide. Some of us are in our Vespers service preparing for the Sabbath. Others are preparing to go to church in the different parts of the world. And Tina just commented that this is a wonderful initiative our church has taken. I'm very impressed and thank God for this valuable information and source of help. Thank you, Tina. Torben, there are, out of the hundreds of people watching, you mentioned some very dire statistics about thoughts of suicide. And they seem to be very prevalent. So it's possible that the people listening will have somebody in their lives that they love who have contemplated this, and they have no idea what's going on in their minds. What are some of the signs that we should be watching out for?
Yeah, well, what I think is important to say that having your mind sort of thinking about suicide, about death, that's not uncommon. In my work as a psychiatrist, almost every single patient I talk to had that kind of thoughts. Fortunately, it's rare that people with mental illness do a suicide. Fortunately, it's rare that people do it, but it's still something we need to be attentive to. We need to be concerned about, and we need to talk about. I think that's the important thing. We need to talk about suicide and talk with one another also about that kind of thoughts, because it's a very lonely thing to have thoughts about suicide and not be able to tell anyone about that. One of the big dangerous myths when it comes to suicide is that people who talk about suicide don't do suicides. That's somehow a myth that has sort of established, and when many people sort of repeat that, that's not true. If people talk about death, if people talk about suicide, if they talk about hopelessness, if they talk about that they feel they don't have a future, then we must take that very seriously. So that's one thing, like people talking about death, suicide, hopelessness, all these things, that's important. Then if people are having various kinds of behavior, people are withdrawing from contact, people are using more drugs, alcohol, people have reckless kind of behavior. These are also like major warning signs that we should say what's going on, and we should talk about that. We should ask the individual about that. So beyond that, like feelings that I'm not worth anything, I'm a burden to others, it would be better for my family that I was not there. Those are just also some signs. That there are many things that could be sort of indicators. But there's no checklist final that sort of, if you don't check anything, or if you check 5 or more, then there's a risk. What we need to do is talk about it. And if we have this hunch, this worry, like I'm worried about my family member, I'm worried about my friend, I'm worried about this church member, then we should reach out and be in a supportive, compassionate way. Talk about how are you doing? What kind of thoughts are you having? And even in that context, just ask sort of, do you ever have thoughts that you want to give up, that you don't want to live anymore? Do you have any thoughts about maybe ending life? And then sort of if there's indications, like of course, if people have plans, if you sort of recognize they actually have plans, they have thoughts about it, but they also have plans and they have means to do that. Maybe they have stored up, like collected medication to do it. They have some kind of other means by which they could do a suicide. Then those are major warning signs. And then things important, if we are concerned, don't leave that person alone until that person is safe. That's important. If you're worried, if you're afraid that the person might be at risk of harming themselves, don't leave that person alone until that person is in safe hands, or there's clearly no reason anymore to worry about suicide. So
very important.
Action is so important, and not just say, well, let's just see what happens. Let's talk again tomorrow or next week or something. That's not okay. We need, if we are worried, if we are afraid for one another, like let's keep one another safe.
One of the things you can do at this point is tag your pastor in the chat. Just tag their name and copy them, because pastors, they get to talk to a lot of people in the congregation as they visit. And if they hear this incredibly helpful information, maybe they could help in those situations. Because the world doesn't seem to be getting any better anytime soon, regardless of where you live in the world and regardless of what politicians will tell you. So you look at the world, and it's not like we're going to become very healthy mentally over the next 3-4 months. So tag your pastor. This is incredibly important. Let me come to you, Katja, and ask about addiction. We've noticed a rise in addiction, I presume, in all of this. People are at home, they are often bored, and they have become addicted to many things, TikTok included. But apart from the social media aspect, tell us about the more serious addictions and the implications.
Well, I think any addiction can be very serious. Some people think that substance addictions, substance use is perhaps more deadly or life-threatening, because it can indeed take someone's life, perhaps even more readily than, say, a behavior. But we do know that it can be very damaging, even if it's not a substance, to be engaged in a behavior addiction. You mentioned TikTok. I will tell you, if you watch The Social Dilemma, a new Netflix documentary on the whole, networking or social network industry and how it works, you will be very alarmed to see that there is huge impact and life-threatening, even risks. And so, yeah, it is something we need to be very worried, especially during this time. As Dr. Turba mentioned earlier on, this 3 out of 4 young people, they not only have symptoms of depression, they also have more increased use of substance use, particularly. But we also know that with the quarantine, everybody going to, social media kinds of things, that is one. But alcohol has gone up incredibly, a lot. Other kinds of substances have gone up, and people trying to cope using those substances. So if it is, whether it is substance use like alcohol, or other heavy, other kinds of hard drugs, or whether it is this behavior of being addicted to your phone. I mean, especially among young people, being, locked to your phone all day, that actually has a huge impact. And we need to be able to help people see how this impacts them. And that's why this is part of what we try to do with this initiative, is to help young people, in this case, or parents, realize the risks and look at the behaviors, and how much time young people are spending, whether it is on media or whether it is using certain substances. Sometimes they won't see. It can be in their room. Kids may be locking their door and staying in the room. So you want to call them out. You want to ask how things are going, see how, they're spending their time, and try to really have those conversations, as you was mentioned earlier, Dr. Melgosa mentioned, because that is so critical and important.
Excellent. We've asked a question here: if people know someone who is suffering from mental health issues, for them not to type their name, obviously, but just to say yes or no. And we've seen many yeses go through the chat here. And this is a very common thing. Now, in the past, if you went to talk to your pastor 30, 40 years ago, and mental health was not something that we talked about a lot, it's possible that your pastor would simply tell you need to pray more. But then we become very aware. And I want to put up a comment that came here. I want to see if I can find it. And Dr. Julian, I'd like you to comment on this. This is what this person says, almost. I don't know exactly if that's their name. Most pastors simply tell you to get professional help. They don't care. This is obviously their perception of that reality. So as a local church pastor, I've received a lot of training on this, and it was basically this: look, you're not going to fix everything. If they need professional help, send them to professional help. But it's possible that pastors, some have gone too far and simply said, look, there's nothing I can do for you. You just go ahead and look for a doctor to help you and hope for the best. Dr. Julian, tell us about the balance between these two, and how can a local church pastor help the most if there are people suffering from depression, anxiety, and all of this?
Well, I think a local pastor can do a lot. Local pastors have a lot of influence on the membership. They are, even today, seen as figures of experience, authority, and they can come in the life of a younger person or a church member, and they can listen to them. Perhaps one of the vices of ministers is to talk too much, because they have been trained heavily on how to preach. I believe that one of the best recommendations for pastors is to be quiet and listen. In our professions, listening is therapeutic, and sometimes, and pastors can experience this all the time, if they don't say anything other than listening to someone who is in the middle of turmoil or with anxious thoughts or extremely sad and are willing to talk, take advantage to listen. Just listen and ask questions about what they are telling, rather than coming up with a story of your own experience, which is a normal reaction. But it must be avoided with people who are suffering from mental and emotional problems. So my advice would be, listen to them. Of course, when you have evidence that the person cannot handle their emotions and their moods, then you must have, as a professional in the helping profession of the ministerial area, you must have a list of good counselors, good mental health practitioners, preferably that understand the Christian perspective. This is also important, so that you can refer to. And you can tell them, well, here I can give you 2 or 3 names. There is a female, there is one male, there is a younger psychotherapist. Give them a call, please, and you can refer to them. But even before that, you can listen to them. And I want to take advantage to make an underlining of the power of a scripture. Just a memory verse or just a verse from scripture. Some people are not good at memorizing. I am one of those. I like to carry in my wallet a little verse. And sometimes when you don't have anything to do, it may be a verse that you have chosen for your particular weakness. You know, I have here, but you will not leave in haste or go in flight, for the Lord will go before you. The God of Israel will be your rear guard. If we have anxious thoughts, if we are with uncertainty and fear about the future, it may be a very good soothing moment to repeat a passage from scripture. There's a lot of power on this. And I am not the kind of people that say, read the Bible and pray about it and it will go away. That is an error. But the Word of God has a lot of power. And pastors, of course, know better than anyone which are the passages and how can a particular passage help a younger or middle-aged person that they come across.
So don't try to fix the problems that you're not capable of. But on the other hand, don't wash your hands either and just send them to the professionals. Excellent. I want to pivot this conversation about resilience, and I'm coming back to you, Katya, and then I'm coming to Torben afterwards with another question. Resilience is, some people call it grit. There's a good book called Grit. Other people call it resilience. Other people call it stickability, which is not a word, but it was invented by another author. All of this refers to the idea of not giving up. And especially young people that grew up with Apple and Android and all these devices that hundreds of people spend a lot of time focusing on making your life easier. And with high dopamine activities such as social media, I know for myself, if I spend half an hour on TikTok, I'm incapable afterwards of doing anything difficult because my receptors are just done for dopamine, and it's very difficult to find any motivation after that. But this is how people have been raised, I suppose, and it's impossible not to, it seems. How do you build resilience long term, not just in a day or two, but especially young people that have their whole lives ahead of them? How do they build this resilience so that they can avoid the substances that are bad for them, so that they can look for what is good and avoid what is bad? Dr. Katya.
Yeah, that is a very important question. And, resilience is something that allows someone to go through hardship and still make better choices and be able to bounce back, be able to do well, be successful. And when we talk about resilience, you mentioned resilience for young people developing over time, and also to be able to be resilient against certain behaviors. So there's two elements in terms of resilience to build. We know that it is a characteristic that we learn along our lifetime. We grow to be more resilient if we have factors for resilience. And so what are some of these factors? We know that, for instance, the kind of relationships that we have, if we have a good attachment to family, friends, people in our lives, adults, particularly in the case of young people, who are affirming, who are trying to help that person, whether it's a boy or girl, understand their value and really cultivate in them the sense that they are precious, that they are loved, and that they belong to people who care about them. That is very, very important to make somebody, a young person, resilient, whether it is against adverse behaviors and whether it is just, other stressors in life, to be able to face life with all the difficulties with a good, positive attitude, with the ability to evaluate things. So this is another factor, is when the person learns, ideally from their parents, but if not from their parents, perhaps in other settings like school or church, the ability to think in a way that really helps them reevaluate the circumstances without, for instance, being pessimistic or blaming themselves or feeling like victims. They would have a different kind of attitude and thought, where they are facing difficulties, but they know that they have people who love them, that they are capable, that God is with them. So they're able to look at the same very stress that others are facing, but look at it with a positive light. And so communication with those parents, learning and having that relationship is very critical. Another thing that's also super important is their relationship with God. If they learn, and we have seen this in studies done among Christians in Adventist schools, for instance, in the Western world, that if they have parents that model a good relationship with God, and they know and they understand, they've had, for instance, family worship at home, they've had family meals with the parents, and they've seen the relationship and the faith of their parents, and they cultivated that as a result, they're again having an extra value or factor for resilience in their lives, because that helps them to use positive spiritual and religious coping when they face circumstances. It helps them, usually is associated with choosing better friends, with choosing better behaviors, and less use of substances, less use of other kinds of addictions too. And so, if we were to look, there are many factors. Of course, there's exercise, there is rest and sleep, and many other health behaviors that also can help somebody be better resilient when facing circumstances. But I think the connection to God, to parents, to a community in school or teachers is very, very critical from early on and growing, through their lifespan. And of course, trying to, along the way, learn better attitudes of thought, of thinking, that can help them face things in a positive way and be able to know their emotions, manage their emotions in a healthy way as well. These are some of the things. There are lots of things we could talk about.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I was reading a research, and now I cannot remember to quote it, which is not good. But it was mentioning that delayed gratification is higher among those that grow up with their father at home. Which is a very interesting thing to observe and to know, because without delayed gratification, it's very difficult to get through school. Or to do well at school, it's very difficult to do anything, because the whole world requires you to do what you need to do first and do what you want to do later. So all of those things add up. I like what you mentioned. It's not just one factor. It's all of these factors that make a difference, right?
This factor that you're just mentioning is one of them. We do know, based on previous research, that kids that learn to delay their gratification, and there's a famous study that looked at, offer the kids the candy. Do you want it now? Do you want it in 20 minutes?
Yes.
And they follow those kids along into adulthood. And they see that those that were able to say, no, I will wait. I'm not going to have it now. I'll have to later. They actually had less issues in relationship to use of substances and addictions, and they were more successful, in terms of their life, their professional life, studies, and everything. And the others that were not able to delay that gratification, they struggled more, and they were more at risk for that. So that is one thing, again, that parents can help teach their kids early on, and that does have a huge impact into those choices and decisions later in life.
Excellent. Clean your room and we will play. Do this and we will do that. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Torben, let me come to you with the pastor question. You had a comment that I jumped over. I just noticed here. Could you just go back to that conversation? Because I think it's important. Yeah. People have tagged their pastors in the conversations. And when their pastors come, let's share a word of encouragement to them. So please share with us some thoughts on the pastors.
I think pastors are like all of us. If we don't feel that we are competent or that we don't know much about something, we tend to avoid it. And that's a challenge we all have as we deal with one another and people having mental health issues. Because we often become a bit afraid, like, what do I do? What do I say? Will I do something wrong? Will I make it worse? So what I really recommend is that everyone, including pastors, should educate themselves on sort of the basic principles of mental health, and also understand sort of the most common issues that people are having. We talk now about suicide a bit. The other big issues are sort of depression and anxiety, and most other mental illnesses. Those are often ingredients of what it is. So, and we are now in this initiative making available excellent resources on mental health, easy to access things where people can go and read. And we have put up a website, and I don't know if we're able to share the link. Excellent. And if you see the mental health at the top, go click, this is youthaliveportal.org. There we have a page with now quite a bit of resources, and we will continue to update and expand this page. So if you go further down, here there's a sign up where you can sign up, where we will provide more information as we make it available. So please, if you're watching, please go to this website, sign up for more information. You see we have some videos that we already are sharing on this, and more will come. And then like further down, Sam, if we can.
Yeah, I'm just subscribing here.
That's how you subscribe. Do what Sam is doing right now.
I don't want to wait till later. It's important.
Yeah. Yes.
Keep going.
Yes. So further down on the website, we'll see like more resources also.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, there is. You're going to have to check that you are you. There's a system. You know, we want to be careful with the information that you provide. So since you're right there, maybe Torben, we can talk to them about sharing all in your social media. Right. This side right here is where you're going to find videos and posts. It even suggests a text to go with your posts. So you can spread it out throughout your social media. Choose your platform, choose the format of your video or image, and then you can go and share, because we want you to be an ambassador for this initiative.
So I can just come here and download the full quality video and share it on my own Facebook and YouTube and everywhere?
Correct. That's exactly right.
Excellent, guys. Thank you. This is so good. Look at that.
Yeah. Sam, are you able to go further down on this page?
Yeah, I'm going. You tell me where to go and I'll follow.
Yeah, well, I think that it's frozen. At least what I see is now the sign up part of it. I don't see, if you scroll further down, I don't see it.
I have been. Let me see.
Yes.
Oh, okay. There
we got it. Yes.
I was in the wrong tab. I'm sorry. So let's go back to here. These are all the resources you can download. What else?
Videos. These are some like social media material, books. One of them, The Power of Hope, that Dr. Julian Melgoza is the author of. And now we're down there with free articles and booklets.
Are these free books I can just download and read?
Yes, you can.
What? Guys, this is great.
Yeah. And by the way, there is a whole library on this website with much more books, but these are specifically the mental health books.
Wow, this is amazing.
And just Sam, if I just may highlight, under free articles and books, you have the link, maybe hard to see now, but mental health self-help booklet series. Yes. And this is, I'll show it here. This is something that has been commissioned by the North American Division Youth Department, that they have made some booklets that you can download, again, for free, and you can share them. It's not copyrighted, as long as you don't sell it and make a profit on it, it's fine. And these are excellent 7 easy to access booklets designed for young people, but excellent for anyone. That describe, I'm just showing like here, one on depression, anxiety. There's one on suicide and self-harm. And these are excellent materials to read on what these issues are, what to do about it, and also the spiritual aspect of it. So if you feel that I'm not quite comfortable, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to think, I just feel more like keeping my distance, then you should read this material. It won't make you a psychiatrist, it won't make you a psychologist, but it will make you an educated person still on how to understand and deal with, and being a compassionate person as you deal with others who are struggling with issues. So for every pastor out there watching, this is something you should read. For anyone who care about other people, this is what you should read.
And on that link that you were just clicking on, Sam, that Dr. Torben was mentioning, you can go in there and you're going to see all these books right online, and you can read it. And you don't need to purchase it. You could also purchase and get what he was showing. But yeah, there you go. You will see the series there, and you're able to download any topic. And
Wow.
show this to your youth. Share this with your youth. Don't try to restrain, as it was said, to say, oh, go look for a psychologist. Give them a referral, but also share with them these resources and read it yourself, so you would know how to approach it in a more therapeutic way.
There you have it, Mary. I need help here, she says. Anyone to reach out and help. You can read all of this material. You can also contact this page, and you can find the Seventh-day Adventist Facebook page, the official world page. You can contact us there on Messenger. There is a whole team 24 hours a day that within 3 minutes will pray for you. So please find that page, and if you need prayer right now, and look for your local church too. There are Seventh-day Adventist churches all over the world, 162,000 of them. In fact, here is some data for you. If you put all of the McDonald's, Subways, and 7-Elevens all put together, they don't come to the number of Seventh-day Adventist congregations around the world. So there's probably one near you, and you can find it, and you will find help there, I'm sure. There are many more comments here, hundreds of them. I'm trying to pick one.
And while we pick Sam, just let's say, if someone is struggling, then also try to connect with a health professional, whoever that is. Just if it's a doctor, if it's a nurse, someone, they can help you find, wherever you are in the world, what may be available in your area, so you can get help also. So what you say, connect with the church, connect with friends, talk with family and friends about what you're struggling with, so they are aware what's going on, so they can support you and help you. But also reach out to some health professional that you have access to, and also discuss your problems, what it is, ask for their advice about what would be a good thing to do.
And if you're in a place or a country where sometimes it's hard to find a mental health professional, on our page, on our initiative page, there is a link there for online, health professionals, counselors that you could also connect to sometimes. And so there's another option as well.
Here is what Darissa was responding. Judy says, I feel like I need help, and then I think, no, I'm okay. I don't need no one. Just talk to the Lord and read my Bible. Then she needs help, and then, and this seems to be pretty common. And then Darissa responded, it's hard to open up sometimes, but just getting another perspective can really help us sort out what we're feeling. So even in this conversation, you see the community helping each other and starting to connect and listen, really. If you have some final comments before we finish, let's start with you, Dr. Melgosa. If you have some final thoughts for us before we close this broadcast, as we focus on World Mental Health Day 2020, which is tomorrow. Now, it may be tomorrow where you are already. So it's October 10th is tomorrow for us. It may be already October 10th where you are, and you may be preparing to go to church, or you've gone to church already this Sabbath. Here we're talking about mental health and the importance of taking care of your mental health. We are one body, mind and spirit, and our emotions, and we're all interconnected. And if you don't care for one of those things, it will have a direct effect on the others. And in the past, we didn't really pay attention to mental health as much as we should have. And this is one of those initiatives that is here to stay, because we need to help people in every possible dimension. I have, as a pastor, I've seen members that felt extremely guilty for feeling depressed and anxious. It's as if they did not have any faith in the Lord. And I have personally been in a very serious depression. I took medication for 4 years as a pastor, and it's a very serious thing. So I'm here to witness and testify that if you need help, go get help. If you break your leg, you're going to a hospital to help. Why is it so difficult for us to know that sometimes we need help professionally in this area. So search for it. Oh, but it's expensive. It's a lot more expensive if you don't do it. The cost is a lot higher to you and your loved ones. So Dr. Melgosa, share with us some final thoughts. You have seen many people in your life as a professional. You have written books about this. People have shared, and you have listened to thousands of hours as people share those informations with you. What are your final thoughts on this special broadcast?
Well, I would say that we need to care for our thoughts. Thinking produces emotions, feelings and emotions, and those cause behavior. Most behaviors are brewed in our mind. We need to learn to know ourselves, to self instruct ourselves, and say to ourselves, Julian, avoid this. Shut up now. Don't say this. Do this first, and then the second. We need to process in our minds the right way of doing it, be because of some anxiety symptom or an inclination to do substances or being depression, whatever it is. A lot of work can be done in the mind. And let's not forget that the mind is strengthened through the Word of God. Prayer is a very powerful tool to strengthen your mind and to look at things in a very realistic way, being optimistic and being resourceful to deal with the difficulties. So work on your mental processes, because that is a great tool for any difficulty or complication in mental illness.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Katya.
So I also I fully agree with Dr. Melgosa. I would like to just highlight that prayer is powerful. We should use it. Our religious and practices are very helpful, but we also have to be able to analyze how our symptoms are. If you are having some symptoms, one day you wake up feeling well, another day not, like somebody wrote here, oh, I pray, I read my Bible, I feel better, but then I feel worse again. So sounds like those ups and downs is not a major depression, is not something that is there day in, day out for 2-3 weeks ongoing. That person may not be suicidal, perhaps because, given that up and down. With that, yes, work with your thoughts and do all that. Now, if you are having suicidal thoughts, if you are constantly terribly sad, I have talked to young people and with older people who were praying, who are reading their Bible, but they were feeling like, asking God to open the earth so they could be swallowed in. That's how bad somebody feels when they are suicidal, when they are depressed. And prayer alone is not going to help you get out of that. In fact, in the Ministry of Healing, Ellen White says it is a positive duty to resist melancholy, discontented thoughts and feelings, just as much a duty as it is to pray. In other words, she says, yes, we should pray, but we also need to do the work necessary, seek the help necessary to help us change our thoughts, change our ability to see things. Perhaps we may need to take a medication. We may need to seek that medical help to be able to help besides praying. And so we need to be able to, again, learn better more information about the differences in the various levels of mental disorders, and then seek accordingly the help. In some cases, we need to really that health professional to help us. And again, look at the resources online that we have in this initiative, because you will see that perhaps you can get links in connection to people that can help you. If you're not sure how to get help, you can contact us, and maybe we can connect you with somebody in your country, in your near where you live, so that you can then be connected with somebody there. And just join this initiative to share this and raise awareness, because you will be helping also people around you in your church, in your family. So we call you to be an ambassador, to sign up and be part of this movement.
Thank you very much. Here is the challenge. Share this with 3 people that you love. Share this broadcast with 3 people that you love. I have Tina had a great idea. I'm reading here. She says, what? There are more Adventist churches than McDonald's? Then maybe we should have a prayer drive-through, she says. I think that if we offered prayer in a drive-through, many people would come, because I've seen how desperate people are and they ask for prayer a lot. Again, we have a team of over 100 people working around the clock, and all they do in life is to pray for those that need it. If you need to experience the power of someone praying for you and you're listening to this podcast, this video, regardless of the platform, see if you can find the Facebook page of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and just send it on Messenger. You're familiar with Messenger, I'm sure. You just click it, Messenger, send the prayer request. Within a few minutes, you'll have a real person. We're not going to use bots with you. You'll have a real person that will pray for you, will intercede with our Heavenly Father for you and the situation that you are living through. Dr. Torben, let me come to you now and ask you for your final thoughts on this. What are your hopes and dreams with this initiative, and how can we help you in leading this movement of mental health awareness and helping people?
Yes, I hope that what we can do with this initiative and our focus in a church on mental health is what is the purpose of the World Mental Health Day. That is to destigmatize mental health issues and help us understand that that's a part of our human existence. And that's just as we all know and we accept that we become physically ill in life. But in this world, with all its brokenness, all its sin, all its pain, like sometimes our brain, our mind also becomes affected by it, and we can become mentally ill also. And just so we understand, when we're talking about mental illness, there's a huge spectrum of that. You have people who are very ill. That's obvious to everyone, where we say, well, that would be something we say people who are in a way crazy, but the big majority of people, you can't see it on them. It's not visible. They are just normal human beings that you can sort of recognize that they have issues, but underneath the surface, they may be struggling. And that's why we need to talk about these things. And I hope that as a church, I really hope that we could be a friendly, compassionate, understanding, caring place where it's nice to come also with your mental issues and your struggles and your pain, and that you can be comforted, that people will understand, and so important that they won't be criticized for it. So that's what, as a church community, if we could be as kind and understanding also with mental health issues as we are and should be with other issues, then that would be great. And then also, I think, to learn to treat ourselves nice when we are struggling. Sometimes I urge my patients, please, I think you should try to be as kind to yourself as you would be to others. Oftentimes, people who struggle mentally with anxiety, depression, they can be very harsh on themselves, very self-critical. That doesn't help. And as Dr. Magosa says, these voices in our heads, also sometimes these self-accusations we can have, think about instead of what these thoughts and voices are saying to myself, what would Jesus say to me? What would someone who loves me say to me? What would my pastor say to me in this situation? So being kind and compassionate, I think if we can achieve that, and that's of course always the fruit of the Spirit and what should be the culture in our church, I think that's something that we can continually strive and work towards, and be inclusive also with people with mental health issues, and don't distance ourselves from them.
Friends, thank you so much for joining me in this broadcast. Each of you have done a tremendous work in putting this project together, and we are certain that it will help thousands, if not millions of people as they learn how to handle their own mental health issues and how they can help others. I was reading a research recently where researchers have found people are more likely to give a full course of medicine to their pet than they are to take their own course for themselves. And I don't know why this is the case, but it's so difficult to treat yourself as if you're caring for someone you actually like. It's easier to be nice to others than it is to be nice to yourself. I don't know why that is, but you brought that up, Dr. Torben. It's something I observe in my own life. And if our chat is anything to go by, I've seen lots of people here help each other. And I believe that if you have an encounter with Jesus and he accepts you and you know he loves you, then loving others will be just a natural consequence of this. And that's the experience that we hope for in all of our churches. We don't always get it right. I have seen some churches that will be very mean to some people in it. I have experienced that myself, as I'm sure we all have. And what I found is sometimes in mental health, we don't want to share that we don't have it all together. We're scared to share that, hey, I don't have it all together. But here's the thing. Everybody already knows that. That isn't a secret to other people. They already know we don't have it all together. And I often say that if you find a perfect church, because there is no such thing as a perfect church, but if you find a perfect church, please don't join it because you're going to mess it up. So if you are part of a Seventh-day Adventist church, or any church for that matter, be that positive influence of love that Jesus was when he walked here. Thank you so much for watching this broadcast. Wherever you are in the world, share it with 3 people that you love and care about. And may this Sabbath not be unique. May this be just a reminder for every other Sabbath, for every other week, that these issues matter. And as we wait for Jesus to heal us completely, let's try and get some healing on this side of the new earth too. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Bye now.